Let me welcome all of you for this session. Thank you for being with us today. So again, quick introduction. This is Chinmay, and this is my wife Mitali. So Anvay Wellness is a social enterprise which we have started specifically for the assistance and guidance of helping basically cancer patients in their journey. So we have experienced cancer in our family, and we understand the challenges that come with it. And we have made this a purpose of our life to see what really we can do to make this challenges at least a little bit smaller for people. So this venture is one small effort in that direction, and this webinar today with our collaborator and teammate Dr. Deepa Shri is another step in that direction. So what we are trying to do, so we are trying to figure out our purpose here is to really help people understand how holistic care methods can be adopted. So conventional care methods we all know of, but I think there is, my understanding is that there is little or limited awareness about how other methods that we have at our disposal, like yoga, we have nutrition, other health and wellness aspects typically get deprioritized or sometimes ignored. So my purpose here and our purpose here is to really bring those elements back into focus and help people adopt it meaningfully. There is, I mean, given there has been a lot more focus, I would say, in the recent times on aspects like nutrition and yoga and well-being. So I think this is continue that effort, and we want to make it useful in the context of cancer care. In some time after this COVID situation settles, we are also planning to open our own care center where we can have more physical interaction and guidance in place. But in the meantime, we are enabling webinars like these and also online consults and other cancer care programs that we'll share with you. A quick introduction on what an integrative approach to care really is all about. So if you look at this wheel and the diagram that you see on the focus, this is our guiding principle and this is our thought process as we and our care team approaches the care for people. So 90% our attention always goes to this left hand side, this body function, which is our physical illness, because that physical illness is what we can see and feel. So our maximum attention always goes on to symptoms that manifest in the physical form, and we focus 90% of our attention only there. But the view I think we need to have is there are three core elements that any of us should have when we talk about health and wellness. And that is one, if you look at the top, what is your environment, the air you breathe, the environment that you live in, the food you consume. So what is that exposure that you are having? For example, pollution or carcinogenic exposure. So that over a long period of time has a significant effect on your health well-being. So that could lead into deficiencies, or carcinogen exposure leads to disease. The mental wellness and well-being is also a very, very critical aspect of health. If ignored over a long period of time, it actually can manifest into a physical form. So one small example which I'll give you is if when our body is under stress, mental stress, our body system releases hormones like cortisol. Hormones like cortisol actually create a physical problems in your body, right? So it can lead to increased risk of heart disease, for example. So having a connection on between mind and body is well established. Our mind and body go together. So I'll keep this short. I'll go. So the next stage of this is if we have these three pillars in place. So for a holistic wellness, be it any disease, and more importantly, cancer care, because it is not a very easy disease to resolve. It takes a lot of effort and time to really fix these problems. So from our side, what efforts can we do? These are the three things that at least you should worry about. One is the environment and exposure that you have, the mental well-being and aspects of it, and the physical symptoms and well-being aspects of it. At least if you look at these three, the overall integrative health and wellness, your quotient of wellness will definitely improve. So with that, I conclude my introduction, and today we have our team member, Dr. Deepa Shri. She is a young and dynamic yoga and naturopathy specialist. she's highly experienced in working with cancer patients. She had worked at HCG in the Complementary and Alternative Medicine Center for quite a number of years. And I think we are glad to have her here, and she'll be anchoring the session today and taking you through on how elements like yoga, meditation, diet and nutrition and mental well-being aspects need to be adopted and how you need to approach them particularly in the context of cancer. And I think Dr. Deepa, and let me also welcome Mrs. Priyanka Garg. I think she has been a patient of Dr. Deepa for some time, and she herself is a breast cancer survivor.
Hello.
And we are glad that you are here, madam. And she's here because she has got good experiences with holistic care, and she is in remission and well right now. And thank you for joining us. And we can have a discussion with Priyanka ma'am and Dr. Deepa in the Q&A aspects of our interactive session. So Deepa, I welcome you, and I'm going to stop my screen share, and you can maybe start your session now.
Sure. Thank you. Is my screen visible to everybody?
Yes.
Yes.
So very good morning to all of you. It's so nice to see all of you join us to understand about what holistic care is and how holistic care will help in cancer care. How can it complement the conventional cancer care that is there these days. Throughout the session, I'll be briefing about what holistic care is, why should we adopt it, what are our goals through it, how certain elements of holistic care, like Chinmay said, we're going to talk about how yoga is going to be helpful, how nutrition is going to be helpful, how we can work towards our mental well-being, and we'll discuss about all of these with any questions that you have, any doubts that you might come up with in the Q&A session. We'll also in the end listen to our guest today, Priyanka, about her experience. You can also discuss with her about any specific doubts that you have and you want her to answer. Please stop me if there's anything that is, that you have not understood, you want me to repeat, you want me to stop, you want me to continue, let me know. So we're going to be talking about what holistic care is. So when do we all become whole? When can we consider ourselves whole? When we connect to the society, most importantly, when we connect to ourselves. So if you see, there's so many things that will help you connect to yourselves. It could be music, it could be art, it could be food, it could be yoga, dance. There's so many things that connect you to yourselves and to people around you, right? So these are ancient yet evergreen sciences that are there, and these days they're becoming therapies. Yoga has become yoga therapy, music has become music therapy, there's art therapy, there's all of these traditional sciences have become therapies so that we again start connecting to ourselves and to the world. Health is basically your physical well-being. It's also your emotional well-being. It is your cognitive well-being. How well can you connect socially? And of course, the spiritual aspect of it, spiritual well-being also. And its health is not just, when there's no disease. I don't have headache, I don't have diabetes, I don't have any disease that, quote unquote is there on the net and textbooks. If they're absent doesn't mean I'm healthy. You're healthy when you, at all of these planes, you're able to evolve and able to connect. And they talk about the holistic care, all of these aspects I told you about. They talk about health and not about disease. We don't talk about how you can get rid of a disease, but how you can improve your health. Say, for example, if country is under trouble, at that point of time when there's trouble from, say, from any terrorists or something, at the borders, our army and air force and navy and all of us are very active. But what do we do otherwise? We try to improve our strengths, right? So when there's a disease, we of course manage the disease, but our main aim is to improve our health, and that is that's our right. Health is our right, and most importantly, it's our responsibility. So why holistic care in cancer? Because we're talking today about cancer, why should we embrace holistic care in cancer? See, when a person is going through cancer treatment and, you know, going through all these side effects, it could be because of the disease itself. There's so many questions, there's so many confusions, there's so many you know, symptoms that they go through, and all of this is affecting an individual in all the planes. It's not only the physical plane that it is affecting you at financial level, at emotional level, at your cognition, and all, and of course your spiritual level as well. So holistic care, as it approaches all of these, as it takes care of all of these planes, we'll have to embrace holistic care for cancer. So like I said, the three main important thing that we have to understand is the disease burden. So when there's cancer, the disease itself, the cancer cells are sucking the life out of an individual, affecting at all different levels. There's also social stigma and fear that, you know, it's very difficult to walk around with the disease. There's stress about it, there's depression, there's some sort of an anxiety about disease progression and about how, you know, how can I walk around with cancer? People will know, what people might start judging me and things like that. So there's that social stigma, and there's definitely, because of all of this, reduced quality of life. So you know, there's no mood to eat, or you're unable to eat because of, you know, structural changes. It could be affecting your sleep, your level of comfort, and your peace of mind. And I've seen people go through this. About more than 75% of cancer patients go through this morbidity through their phase of cancer and post that. So how can we approach? What should we do about it? So what are the goals of our care? What is it that we want to achieve? The first and important thing is comfortable breathing. If we can allow our life force, the breath that is physically denoted, to flow in and out with ease and elegance. If we are able to comfortably sleep, if we are able to have quality food, if we are able to enjoy the food that we are having, if we are able to function optimally with our you know, cognitive functioning, if we are able to connect to people, and if we are able to spiritually evolve. So it is our goal, like I explained in the first slide, it's going to be about achieving all of these at different levels. You know, if we can prioritize our physical health first, when we're going through cancer, we can prioritize about taking care of the side effects or improving the quality of physical life. But parallelly, we should also be working about how we can, you know, mentally stay healthy, how we can also make sure that we as an individual are evolving, we as an individual are connecting to ourselves. So it's in life, it's never going to be, you know, always happy things around. It's never going to be, it cannot be possible that you're in your comfort zone all the time. So cancer is probably something that is that will teach you what wellness could be, what joy could be, because only when we experience something that is bad, we start valuing what is good. So with holistic care, with mutual support and with understanding, let's shift our focus from the trouble or, you know, whatever is affecting our quality of life to this solution and to the next level of comfort at all levels, where we are peaceful, where we are comfortably able to manage our functionality with the disease burden, and also spiritually evolve. So these words are going to repeat because I want you to all understand it, because it's very important. It's not just about, getting rid of the disease. But having said that, is it very easy? A lot of cancer patients attending here might think, it's easy to sit there and say we have to achieve health at all levels, but it's not easy. We know what we're going. Definitely, I understand and I agree that this process is not easy, but it's simple and it is possible. It's very much possible with support, with determination, and with that energy. If you have an intention to get better, you can definitely, uh, you can definitely work towards it and get better at all levels. If we start resisting it, then it adds on. If we accept and move on, it becomes better. So without, talking much about the holistic care, I think we've discussed enough. Let's talk about what is the role of yoga. Let me get straight into the topic of yoga. And before I talk about yoga, let me share I don't know what to call it. Should I call it funny or should I call it an unfortunate experience? I don't know. When I was working in HCG and when I introduced myself to my cancer patients, saying that I am, I am a yoga doctor. I'll be able to help you with yoga. They would look at me as I'm doing some sort of crime. What do you, how can you expect us to do yoga in this phase? That was the question that was there on their face. You're really talking about yoga when I'm lying on the bed like this with cancer, when I'm extremely tired, when I'm worried about all the other things in the world, and you really want me to do yoga? So that was the question that they would pose at me. And why I am sharing this experience is that yoga is not just about, for a lot of people, yoga could just be, practicing asanas, headstand, leg balance, and, all the flexibility and things like that. So yoga is not just about physical postures, but it's also about how can you comfortably breathe, or how can you, without doing anything, without practicing any asana or any posture, in your comfort position, if you're lying down, if you're sitting, if you're standing, whatever your comfort posture is, how can you, calm your mind down? How can you physically relax yourselves? How can you improve the quality of life that you have in the position that you are in? So you can do all of this with yoga. So what are the roles of yoga during the disease phase, or when you are going through treatment, when you're diagnosed and you're going through treatment? It could be surgery, it could be some targeted therapies, it could be chemo, it could be radiotherapy. What can you do? So first is, again, like I said, it'll help you improve the quality of your sleep. Sleep is definitely affected. I think you all agree with me. So the quality of your sleep can be improved with practice of relaxation techniques and just conscious breathing. It'll help you increase your energy. A lot of cancer patients have this issue with fatigue. They get fatigued very soon. They just don't have the energy to do anything. They want to be lying around. They want to just sit and do nothing. So that energy, innate energy within you, can be improved with the practice of very simple techniques that will not, of course, drain the energy out of you. You will start accepting the situation that you're going through instead of resisting it. You can work with cancer instead of working against cancer. You can experience stress reduction. You'll feel comfortable with practices. And the second important goal during treatment phase is manage side effects. See, many a times we'll have to accept that our side effects are inevitable because cancer as a disease is very huge. Treatment will also be very strong, and it will have its own effect. If we have to get rid of cancer cells, we'll have to also go through these side effects. But how can you prevent or how can you manage these side effects? Like, it could be chemotherapy induced nausea, vomiting sensation, or vomiting itself. Even in pediatric population, even in children with cancer, we've gotten very beautiful results with yoga practice for nausea and vomiting. Fatigue, like I said, it could be neuropathy. When you're going through chemotherapy, you will many of the patients will end up having neuropathy or tingling, numbness in the limbs, in the lower and the upper limbs. It will help you improve your appetite. Especially during chemo, individual will not have appetite to eat anything. But with practice of yoga, there are scientific proven studies to improve and manage side effects and improve your quality of life. And third and most important point is it will help you, it will complement the conventional treatment that you're going through. It could be surgery, chemo, radio, what treatment you have chosen to get rid of cancer. It will complement this treatment to improve the treatment outcome. So there's an anti-cancer effect. How is this? How can we understand the anti-cancer effect? See, one simple logic is cancer cells cannot function properly when there's a good amount of oxygen around. Okay, so the most important enemy of cancer cells is that if tissue has good oxygen, then cancer cells are not very happy. They not very happy. I can frame it this way. They will not want to shift. They'll not want to spread in your body. They'll not want to grow because oxygen is not allowing it to. Okay. So what we're doing with yoga, we're consciously breathing. We're improving our quality of breathing capacity, how much air we can breathe in and breathe out. So with just that, we'll be able to improve the tissue oxygenation, get rid of what is called this tissue hypoxia. Hypoxia is reduced oxygen. So when there's tissue hypoxia, cancer cells are very active. They want to spread. But with yoga, we are able to get rid of tissue hypoxia and help in anti-cancer, help in complementing the treatment. Another important thing is by taking care of the inflammatory process that is happening in the body, we'll be able to, again, complement your conventional treatment to improve the outcome. So post-treatment, so a lot of people tell me that, during treatment, I just cannot practice. It is, not possible. They just don't make up, they don't make their mind to practice yoga. So what can we do post-treatment? Post-treatment, again, it will help you with improving quality of life, especially with functionality. If somebody has had bone cancers and there's reduced range of motion of the joints, it could be head and neck cancers when there's reduction in the, when there's stiffness and reduction in the range of motion of the neck. It could also be in breast cancers when the shoulder movements are not very comfortable. So your physical functionality, we can gradually increase and improve with yoga. It will also help you, like I said, improve your quality of sleep, energy. It will help you with stress reduction. Post-treatment is going to be about what is going to happen next. What if I get cancer again? What if my follow-up scans show me that there is cancer and all of this? So stress itself is a direct, influencer of cancer progression or recurrence. So there's a lot of scientific studies that say when you're stressed, your chemical imbalance in the body can trigger cancer recurrence and progression. So with stress reduction post-treatment, you'll be able to prevent recurrences. Then improve your health overall. Okay, now we have gone through the phase of cancer. Cancer treatment or finishing your phase of cancer treatment and in remission doesn't end. So what you have to do is from there, what is the next step? How can I improve my health? How can I improve my health in all the places that we discussed? So I will start working towards it, because like I said, it's not very easy to get rid of all of those thoughts of what if I get it back again. And like I posed the questions in the second slide about what is going to happen financially, family, I have children to take care of, I have to get my son married. So there's so many, uh, confusions and stresses that you're going through, and all of that will be affecting your health in different planes. So how can you improve your health? But having said that, now there's so many yoga centers around us, right? So any road you go into, there's a yoga center probably, especially in cities like Bangalore. So what precautions must you take about yoga, practicing yoga during cancer, is each individual is different. Say for example, if I have 5 patients with breast cancer, I cannot teach them same yoga. I cannot give them same food. I cannot make them practice same pranayama. There's going to be some modifications I'll have to make for all of them based on their level of functionality. Especially hyperventilatory practices like Kapalabhati and Bhastrika. These are the practices that you should completely avoid, especially during and immediately during your cancer treatment phase, and immediately after that. You should not get into practices of Bhastrika and Kapalabhati. Many a times it might not cause any trouble, but at times it will. And only a doctor who is trained in yoga for medically how you can interpret, how you can apply the science of yoga, only they'll be able to tell you whether you can practice a pranayama or not. So the main important precaution you should take is to get these advices from a doctor, certified doctor who has experience in treating cancer patients, because these days we see a lot of research centers, we see a lot of cancer yoga centers that talk about therapy. So that's one of the very important precautions you should take. And you should talk about what you are going through when practicing yoga or with your cancer itself. What differences are you facing? What are you going through with your primary physician as well as your yoga doctor? So be the bridge between the two doctors, stay connected. And there's so many YouTube videos on yoga, there's so many things that are there. So we'll have to be very sure about what is good for us, consult a doctor and then take decisions. That's one of the most important things. So after that, we're going to be talking about food. See, food is very, very important, because we are made of what we eat. If your cells is to grow, if the functions have to improve, you will have to give it nutrition, you will have to give it the raw materials to process and get outcomes of it. So when you're eating well, you'll be able to prevent one of the major complications during cancer is cachexia. Cachexia is a term to describe complete loss of muscle mass. There's you might have seen in pictures, or you might have gone through yourselves, that you lose your weight, you lose your muscle mass, protein mass basically, because cancer is eating all that up for its growth and survival. So when you are eating well, you'll be able to prevent cachexia. See, cancer, say for example, let me take example of tongue cancer. Okay. In our body, how much percentage of it is our tongue? It's probably 5%, not even 5, but let me give it 5% of the entire body is tongue and it has cancer. Does it mean that I compromise the remaining 95% of my body without eating properly, without giving it proper nutrition? I can't be doing that. So eating is very, very important. Many a times cancer patients are forced to eat, eat even though you don't have appetite and hunger, eat, because naturally when I don't have appetite without cancer, it is my body's information that I have to not eat. But during cancer, it is all the treatments and the drugs that you're going through talking mainly than your body yourself. So food is very important. They are the building blocks for your body. You'll be able to achieve nutritional harmony with having balanced food. I am not a person who would want to be talking about how much calories you should have, and this is the amount of carbs and proteins and fat that you should be taking. But again, go back a couple of decades ago and think about how beautiful the meal plate looked with, wholesome food, plant-based food. It could be, traditional foods that we used to have, herbs from our backyard that we used to prepare dishes with. So all of them had, properties that would aid health, take care of all of these diseases like cancer. So nutritional harmony is important. Antioxidant effect, especially with fruits and vegetables. When I come to fruits, especially, a lot of people ask me, fruits these days are sprayed with a lot of insecticides and pesticides. How safe is it to consume fruits and vegetables? And a lot of oncologists are in this view that is much more just by the pesticides. And antioxidant properties. So to consume local seasonal fruits, vegetables in your diet. Tulsi will help with your anxiety levels as well. It'll help you bring down your anxiety. It'll help you bring down your stress levels. One of the major hormone indicating stress, that is cortisol, that is increased during all of these phases. Tulsi itself will be able to help neutralize it. Ginger will help in improving your appetite and help you in your digestion process overall. So antioxidant properties of these foods will help. Anti-cancer foods, I think you must all be aware, or if you're not, you should start consuming turmeric. There are turmeric extracts also that come these days, or turmeric, if you can get natural turmeric, you can start using that. Ramphal, which is very famous, and now the cost of it is also increased because it has anti-cancer properties. Ramphal is very good. It's called sweet soap. Carrots, beets, greens, moringa, all of these have anti-cancer effects. So does it mean that I only take these foods and not take any conventional treatment? No, because your body will not be in a state to fight cancer with just these foods alone. Many a times you will have to go through certain treatments as well. But these will help, complement your treatment, and on a long term it will help you in prevention of further recurrences. What supplements? Protein powders, definitely when a patient is cachexic. Also omega-3, turmeric extracts, caripil to improve your platelet counts during chemotherapy, ashwagandha to physically, mentally relax you. All of these are supplements that are going to help you. But with supplements, you'll have to be in continuous touch with your nutritionist or your primary physician to manage the dosage of these supplements. You cannot let your body depend on these supplements for a long period of time. During the active phase of treatment, you can use supplements and get help from it, but over a long period of time it's always better to shift to natural foods than getting dependent on these supplements. That is very important. So lifestyle, see, what is style? Style is way of doing something, right? So way of leading your life is lifestyle. So you will have to live your life with joy, with contentment, with positivity around you, and with a sense of gratitude. So like that quote there says, the more you praise and celebrate your life, the more there is to celebrate, right? So you have to make your life a celebration. Of course, there's life-threatening disease. Of course, there's a lot of complications that might have arise because of the disease. Yet that will not take away your right to celebrate your life. Only if you make up your mind, you'll be able to make your life a celebration with, of course, it will require support from the family, it'll require support from your friends and your peers, but most importantly, you should be leading it. You should be leading the group of supporters that you have. If you have your family, if your friends and your colleagues, your doctor, and all of these people, you are the one who should be heading this team of supporters to improve the quality of your life, to enjoy and celebrate your life. Even with cancer, I am telling you, cancer doesn't mean a death sentence, doesn't mean it's end of life, but it definitely, even at the state where you are probably going through palliative care, you've gone through all treatment phases and it's not working, even then it's very important to look at the brighter side of life rather than thinking about what went wrong and what mistakes might have happened and what wrong decisions you've taken. All of that is there, but what is the brighter side? What is the ray of hope that you can look towards? Again, with this, I'd want to share one very small experience with HCG, a cancer hospital where I worked. We did a study on understanding the belief system of cancer patients. It's called oncotheology. It was headed by Dr. Vishal Rao, one of the very famous oncosurgeon, head and neck surgeon. So he and his team, we all wanted to understand whether cancer will change belief system of an individual, whether it'll help you in improving your belief towards yourselves and if you're a believer of God, will it help you grow spiritually, or will it make you more it'll make you stop believing in things that you believed before. It could be your God, it could be your family. So we tried doing this study, giving questionnaires to patients, and we've understood that cancer, for more than 80% of patients that we've interviewed, was a life-changing event where they learned a lot of lessons and where they've evolved out of it. You must have seen a lot of cancer survivors forming groups so this is problematic area. Things that are teaching you lessons are lessons that are helping you to evolve better, right? So the last part of my presentation about mental well-being, when we're talking about mental well-being, if you see the picture on the side of the slide, you see there's a web connected with dots. So even a mind is like that. We have so many thoughts, so many emotions, connected to each other, not connected, some remain, some just come and go off, some make a lot of impact, some affect us positively, some, you know, suck the life out of you. So there's so many thoughts and emotions that come in, right? So mental well-being is about how can you organize, the first step is how can you organize these thoughts and emotions. Very important, because see, when we consider this entire universe, we ourselves are very small dots, right? And our thoughts are further, you know, they go down in the list. They're like peck of dust. So very minute things when compared to the entire cosmos. But how much it affects, what is the impact of each thought on us? So we have to decide, and we have to very strongly see what thoughts, what emotions we hold on to, we embrace, and what we get rid of in a constructive way, right? So how from how can we filter out what remains and what is thrown out, and after that how can you silence your mind, how can you experience that state of calmness? So meditation along with other practices of yoga, definitely pranayama, asanas are going to help. Meditation is very, very important. Before you get into a state of meditation, you will go through practices of relaxation techniques. It could be music that can help you, you know, help with achieving mental well-being. It could be art, it could be dance, it could be nature, gardening. I'm spending time gardening, I'm spending time doing some sketch work. So all of these very effective modalities will help in achieving a state of mental well-being. Again, if you observe small kids, you know, children around you, they're most of the times very happy. They're always very smiling. They're very curious. They want to learn something. But as we grow, we, you know, narrow down our thought process. We stop becoming curious about things. We stop learning. We stop being happy. If we were to be smiling most of the time before, as kids, we're always smiling, and if there must be some incident that make us sad and we start crying. But now there should be some incident that will make you happy and you smile. So that is the shift that has happened. So only when you're curious, only when you make your life a celebration, that, you know, you're going to achieve even a state of well-being, mental well-being instead of mental chaos. Okay, very important. So with this, I come to the end of my brief explanation about why it is important to embrace holistic care in cancer. Before we go into Q&A sessions, I'd want to tell you that we are starting a cancer care program, you know, to mutually help all cancer patients, cancer survivors or caretakers in a 10-day program uh, to see and learn how we can achieve all of these you know, all of these aspects of health: physical, mental, emotional, psychological, spiritual, all planes of health. How can we achieve it? So in a 10-day program, we're going to discuss, we're going to learn, and we're going to continue practicing it by ourselves after the 10-day program that we've, you know, that we join together and do. I think Chinmay will be able to give more information about the program that we want to start very soon. Chinmay, over to you.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I'm going to just quickly brief you. I think as Deepa suggested, we are launching this cancer care program, which is currently going to be online because of the COVID situation. But the whole idea here is to really get into one-on-one sessions with people. So we want to make it a very focused program for a very focused set of people who are interested. And these are the few things that we are going to try and do. So with a personalized assessment, the content of the program is oriented towards helping people adopt methods of relaxation, how exactly they should be doing those relaxation methods, how exactly pranayama needs to be done, what exactly is going to work as Deepa suggested, what kind of ways of life and wellness habits are required, and so on, with nutrition and everything. So that is our program. And it's a 10-day program which is going to be online. We are focusing only on 10 participants so that we can pay individualized attention to all the people. So yeah, that's about the program. So now we can go ahead and have this Q&A session, Deepa.
Sorry. So we'll start with this question and answer session. But before that, let me bring Priyanka Garg. Let's have a discussion with her. Let's understand her perspective on holistic care. Priyanka, are you there?
Yeah. Hello everyone.
Hi. Can you please tell me about your experience of
Yeah, sure.
how you went through your journey? If you can
Yeah.
share.
Yeah. Hello everyone. My name is Priyanka Garg. I was diagnosed with breast cancer in June 2018 and got operated in September 2018. And after that, I was very lucky to meet Dr. Deepashri, who came to me with the yoga approach. And as she told earlier, even I was not very happy doing yoga. And then when I just started with her, it was like magic for me. Yoga just created magic in my life. It helped me gain back all my strength, and I had restricted arm movements after surgery, so I was able to gain back my normal movements. And then during chemo also, it helped me, as she told, gaining the strength and doing my normal work. So it was very helpful. And the yoga exercises and whatever she taught me were really light. I could do it very easily, and she taught me step by step everything. So it was a very nice experience for me. Until now, it's been like more than 1 year since my treatment is over. Until now, every day I'm practicing the same thing. It's not even a single day I'm able to leave it. So every day I practice and I feel very happy practicing that, and every day I thank her. So it was a very good experience for me. And she also always counseled me, always listened to my personal problems, and always she advised me. So that was also a very nice interactive session. Like yoga used to be half of the session, and other half would be just the counseling. So that was very helpful for me at that time. Until now, I am using those advices and those yoga practices. Till now I'm practicing them. Then it has increased the flexibility. My pain after surgery, pain and all had come down. Stamina was increased. I gained back my confidence. I really feel good, and fitness level has increased a lot. Before I could just not even walk like few steps. Then slowly I just, after yoga practice and all, and after encouragement and all the counseling from Dr. Deepashri, I was able to do everything like what a normal person can do. I've just come back to my normal life, my normal work routine, and all the credit goes to the yoga sessions what I had with Dr. Deepashri. And
thank you, Priyanka. It was very nice of you to give me all the credits, but I would say that what mattered the most was that she was very compliant. She she would always call back for appointments. It was not like we asked her to come follow up with us. She was very very compliant, very dedicated to improving her health and lifestyle. So she was the main, like I said, she was leading all of us, all the supporters that were behind her. She was leading us for helping her to improve. So in cancer care, it is very, very important that you stick on to it. You stick on and practice. Otherwise, there are a lot of reasons to you will find a lot of reasons to stop. But only when you stick on, I think I should appreciate her for this. She was very, very compliant and very dedicated. So
Thank you.
that's very, very important.
And
Whatever. Yes,
yeah,
yes.
meditation sessions, I didn't know. Before that, before meeting Dr. Deepashri, I didn't know what is breathing, like breathing techniques, or what is meditation. It was like totally unknown to me. Then when I learned from her, it was like, meditation is like, going to heaven. It's so magical it is. So that also really helped me. Relaxation techniques, meditation, and the right breathing techniques while doing yoga, step by step, whatever she taught me. And it was really beautiful. And what I suggest to every cancer patient is yoga after the treatment or during the treatment is a must. Like, it's not a choice, it should be a must to come back to the normal life. So if we have to quickly come back to normal life, we have to follow these whatever the yoga therapist or the meditation or the nutrition part of it, and everything has to be followed on a continuous basis to come back to normal life quickly. Otherwise it's really difficult, and all this helps us to gain back our confidence, which is most important. Gain back our confidence and energy level. So I think if we have both of them, we can do anything like before how we were doing. So I stress on that yoga therapy is a must during the treatment and also after the treatment.
Thank you, Priyanka.
Thank you.
That was very important to listen to from a cancer survivor herself, because it's easy for me to sit here and say, it'll help and you should go through. But when a cancer survivor herself is able to confidently embrace it and tell you all that it's a must, then I think it has a weightage.
Yeah.
So
I think, maybe we can take some questions.
Yes.
So people here, if you have any questions about anything, you can please post it on the chat, or you can unmute and ask.
Yes, please.
Or also maybe raise your hand in the chat window. So to begin with, maybe Deepa, Chinmay, I will only ask you one question. I think there is a...
please.
Maybe you can help us understand. People, we have been following and understanding or hearing about pranayama since from so many sources, channels. But what exactly, if you can just help us with a quick demo, a small demo of what exactly is the right breathing method? Simple method which people can take away today in terms of what is right breathing. As you speak on the oxygen levels and the rationale that you gave. So simple thing that people can just practice by themselves. That will be helpful.
Right. So, yes, Chinmay, I'll do that. See, when we're talking about breathing, first I'll demonstrate different styles of breathing that people do. Normally, not just about cancer and cancer patients, but normally individuals, there are different styles of breathing, right? Let me not start from the basic. Let me let me show it to you. When I say slow breathing, try and slow down your breathing. That's when they breathe, that's kind of deep, that very forceful, deep. When I say deep, slow breathing, they think that they'll have to put in extra force to breathe in more air, and that will give them more oxygen and things like that. No, that's a wrong notion. See, breathing is an involuntary process. We many a times don't even bother about how we are breathing. So it's an involuntary process happening. And when we are consciously breathing, when we are breathing with awareness, if you're doing all of these exercises, like, breathing with force, breathing very fast, it's not going to calm you down. It's not going to help you. But when it comes to slow, conscious breathing, if when you're practicing it, if somebody is looking at you, they will not even know whether you're breathing in or breathing out. So it is that slow and that steady, that comfortable. So now I'll just do 3 rounds of breathing just to show you how to, you know, breathe the right way, and we'll all experience it. You will all close our eyes and experience it also. Okay. So first I'm going to close my eyes. I'm sitting in my comfortable posture. I'm keeping my back and neck erect. If need be, I can also take a support for my back, where, you know, I'm at my comfort position. And in this position, first it is important that I observe my breathing pattern, and then I start slowing down from the pace of breathing that I'm in. So I'm going to breathe very slowly, very comfortably, and it's going to be very deep. When you look at me, probably you just feel that I'm sitting here and doing nothing. But all of you try and experience it. Sit in any comfortable posture. Keep your eyes closed. Observe your breathing pattern. And now gradually try and slow down your breathing and observe the movement of your abdomen. Your abdomen or your stomach region expands as you breathe in and relaxes as you breathe out. If it's happening the other way around, try and correct it. Your abdomen expands as you breathe in and relaxes as you breathe out. Observe your chest. It expands as you breathe in, relaxes as you breathe out. Observe your shoulders.
No, actually, I'm using this 2.4 gigahertz of fast.
Your shoulder raises as you breathe in, expands, and as you breathe out, it relaxes. So with abdominal movements, thoracic movements, and shoulder movements in your breathing, you're able to aerate all the lobes of your lungs comfortably, and as you breathe out, you're relaxed. So consciously breathe for next 3 to 5 rounds and observe the effects of it.
I'm taking this issue currently from fasting. Okay? Yeah.
So all of you come, when you're feeling comfortable, slowly open your eyes. Will conscious breathing with awareness, with slow and deep breathing, help you calm yourselves down, or did it, you know, make you restless? What was your experience? Okay, I don't see anybody sharing their experiences.
Yeah, it was very calming. It is very relaxing.
Yes, many a times you might have observed that when you're scared of something, or when you're angry, when you're stressed, your breathing rate increases. So it's also the other way around. When you try to slow down your breathing, you will also mentally calm yourselves down. Okay, this was very brief. This was just 2-3 minutes that we practiced. But there are so many variations in which we practice. There's so many breath regulations that we do. There's uni-nostril breathing. There's alternate nostril breathing. So many things that we can practice that have their own benefits, scientifically proven and published. And you can also start experiencing it. That's very important.
Right.
Okay. Yes.
So there's a question, Deepa,
Yeah.
that, and I think, yeah, when Asha has also shared her experience, that calming experience with this exercise on the chat window.
Okay.
Okay, the question is, what can be done in nature cure and yoga to prevent or to control the metastasis of cancer of the ovary?
Okay. So, see, with ovarian cancers, if you have undergone treatment, many a times they will also, operate upon you and remove your ovaries because it's hormone related. They'll give you hormonal medications post that, and you will, you will be on certain medications like I said, on hormonal tablets or, injections, which is at intervals and things like that. So it's very important that when we have hormone related cancers, it could be thyroid, it could be ovarian, it's very important that we relate to what are the things that affect the hormones otherwise. See, for example, when you take the functions of the ovaries, ovaries are functioning optimally when they are, when your body and mind is at peace, when you're not very stressed. Hormones and reproductive organs or thyroid, they react very fast to stress and change in lifestyle. So it's very important to practice good food habits, good lifestyle, practice yoga to keep your weight under check because you're on hormonal medications yourselves. It is very important that you take care of all of these. And very important thing is that you have to be in touch with your primary physicians for any cancer. This is common for any cancer, that you have to be in touch with your primary physicians to, follow their advices. Keep following up with them, meet them at intervals. They'll ask you to meet them at 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, and for next 5 years, you will be in constant touch with them and you will follow. And for any preventive methods, it's very important, like we discussed, to take care of the food that we're eating, our mental well-being, and our physical fitness. So we'll have to take care of, weight very importantly when we have to prevent, especially further recurrences or mets of cancers.
Okay. So I think Veena has a question. I have unmuted you, ma'am. If you would like to ask directly. Okay, I think I can't unmute her. The question is, in a holistic approach, how does one measure the progress?
Okay.
Which are the tests or markers that can be taken up by
the survivor? Yeah.
And I think the question is also related to, I think they are already exposed to too much of radiation in the process.
Right.
In that context.
Right. See, many a times when we are going through holistic approach, how do we measure the progress is, let me divide it. One is very subjective, of how you are feeling every day with approaching and with embracing holistic methods. How are you feeling? Are you feeling better in terms of quality of sleep? Are you able to breathe better? Are you able to feel energetic? Are you mentally, clear and calm, or do you still get into episodes of depression or anxiety? So all of these subjective experiences of the patient is very, very important for us to understand the progress. Okay. And in there are also, you can also go through a lot of blood tests, molecular studies, genomic studies, and your regular follow-up investigations, like it could be PET scan, it could be follow-up mammography. All of these investigations, radiological investigations, will also help in terms of cancer progression, whether there's any progression, or with holistic care are we able to prevent it. But without talking about cancer, which is just about the health, these are the indicators. Your subjective experiences are the major indicators that will tell us, because a person who is feeling comfortable cannot come and tell me that, this is not helping me. This is not, I'm not feeling any better. So that is one thing. And when you're practicing yoga in front of us, we'll also be able to understand whether your flexibility is improved, whether your breathing is, whether your breathing capacity is improved. We can do smaller tests like breath holding capacity. We can do smaller experiments like how long can you maintain in an asana. And all of these simpler experiments will help in understanding how your progress is towards. Okay. But standardized or very conclusive tests are, of course, the blood tests and the investigations that you can do. But subjective experiences and objective observations are also, very important, and they give more or less all the, points to understand where, to what level you have progressed to.
So Manjula has a question. Ma'am, you can go and ask. Unmute yourself and ask if you would like.
Post-treatment.
Yeah, you can see in the chat, right?
Yeah, I am able to see that. Post-treatment oral chemo tablets, the side effects will be there. Is there any alternative tablet? Severe joints, I interpret as joint pain. How long patient has to sustain since doing regularly walking in Surya Namaskara? So if I understand, is there any alternative for the tablet that you are already taking? And you probably are also going through severe joint pains, and how can you improve your quality of life? And if I'm not wrong, you're also already doing Surya Namaskara and you are walking, right? Is this the correct interpretation? Can you please give me a clarification? Manjula, madam. Is she there? Is she there with us?
She's there.
Okay. Okay, let me answer this question. First of all, an alternative tablet to suggest, I am not the right person to give you an alternatives for any treatment that your conventional doctor has advised you to take. If you're going through major side effects, you can that is affecting you very badly, you can discuss with your doctor to get an alternative for it if it is available. But when it comes to fatigue and joint pains, you will have to practice certain techniques. See, when you have severe joint pain, Surya Namaskara is something that I would not advise, especially before I understand how Surya Namaskara, what steps you're following and how are you practicing Surya Namaskara. So initially for certain days, if you can practice only breathing, very mild loosening exercises and relaxation techniques, you'll be able to manage the pain, joint pain, and then gradually we can gradually improve the number of practices that we give you and go ahead with the practices. So before assessing, it'll be able to be difficult for me to tell you what you should do and what you should not do. But see, that is the point I mentioned. Yoga doesn't mean that I only do asana, Surya Namaskara, and stretch myself. It's also about how you integrate breathing, how you integrate mindfulness, how you can relax along with practicing yoga, apart from just physically exercising. But for your tablet, you will have to talk to your doctor.
Okay. There's a next question from Srimati Sundar Raj Madam.
Do we have specific set of treatment, diet and yoga protocol for different types of cancers, or it's the same? Well, wonderful question. Uh, see, it is not just about different cancers, but it's about each individual. It's about, like I said, if I have 5 people with breast cancer, each person will probably have some modifications that are made. More or less, it's generally it's generally planned and later on customized based on the individuals as to what dietary modifications they must do, what set of practices in yoga they can start doing. So you might do Nadi Shodhana Pranayama, or it is very, very commonly called these days as Anulom Vilom Pranayama. But when do you start doing it depends on each individual, and it depends on what morbidity the cancer has brought in. So 2 important things are there before we decide on the treatment, be it diet or yoga.
Yeah, I think what we need to understand is the response of each therapy, or I think, is different or is very individualized. Even if you
Yes.
take drugs, some people face side effects with some treatment, some people do not face any effect, and it is very helpful for them.
Yes,
So,
right.
Same holds on for all other methods as well. The response is very, very individualistic.
Right.
And this is why it is important for us to personalize in terms of what is working and what is not working.
Yeah.
And therefore individualize that experience.
Right.
So short answer, no, it's not the same. It is individualized, I think.
Right.
That's what.
Right. Because I might take 1 month to learn a process and to experience the benefits of it, while Chinmay can just learn it in a week. So there's a difference in how we respond to the treatment and how beautifully we allow the treatment to work, be it diet, be it yoga, all of these, especially holistic approaches. It's important, like he said, about it's important to understand how we support it rather than how these treatments support us.
I think there's a next question from Aishwarya.
So, yeah, there's how to manage cachexia from Nature Cure. Many a times cachexia is because of the extreme activity of the cancer cells, where they are eating up all the nutrition and not allowing the remaining parts of the body to utilize the nutrition that you're giving. So you will have to sit with your dietitian or your nutritionist to plan your meal, how much of protein intake, how much of other nutrient intake should you be taking with in terms of food. And indirectly in terms of yoga and other nature cure treatments is how you basically help in anti-inflammatory effects, where you can indirectly work on cancer cells themselves, and how you can mentally calm yourselves and indirectly work on cancer. So all of these will help in cachexia, but it is majorly food that is very important at the prime time, and mindful eating and eating the right amount of food and the right quality quantity maintained when you're eating food for cachexia management. Madam, yeah, correct, severe pain, thanks a lot for that. Okay, there's another question about holistic care. If I'm not wrong, it's from Jeevna. What is the difference between holistic care and, okay, in the context of cancer care, is it in terms of the interventions or in terms of considering the body as a whole? Please elaborate. I think it is in cancer, especially it is both, because we'll have to not just treat or not just take care of the part that is affected, but we'll have to take care of the body and mind as a person as a whole. We're not treating the disease, we're treating the person as a whole. And it's also very important about holistic interventions. It's about not just one set of treatment that I'm trying to embrace, but I'm also trying to get benefits from all possible treatments that I can take, but maintaining a balance. It doesn't mean I do everything and make it very complex and complicated, but how can I simplify this integrated approach? Because even in HCG, when we had this rehabilitation clinic where speech swallow therapist, pain and palliative care, yoga, nutrition, physiotherapy, psychology, all of us would sit, discuss about the needs of the patient, and then timeline. Say first week you will go through this because that's more important. We would prioritize which would go because initially post surgery maybe patient is not ready to practice yoga, so I'll take that week later, and in that time I'll be able to give him psychological support. I'll be able to give him some help in speech and swallowing. So we'll have to prioritize the interventions, but it's again holistic there, as well as when we talk about the body, we're talking about person as a whole, not just the body also. We're talking about body and mind.
Okay.
Yes. So there's another question. What can we do to manage inflammation? Can systemic inflammation or rheumatoid arthritis or PCOD eventually lead to cancer? Are they comorbidities? Okay. PCOD, which is a metabolic endocrine disorder that has a lot of inflammation going on, a lot of hormonal imbalances going on, because it's the collection of the cysts in the ovaries that are going on, can lead to development of cancers on a long run. But these days PCODs are very, very common, and there are a lot of things that you can do to get rid of PCOD, which you should, start, you should start checking on what can help you with management of PCOD. But when it comes to rheumatoid arthritis, until now there's been no direct link to cancer. It's not that rheumatoid arthritis is a risk factor, but inflammatory cancer along with rheumatoid arthritis can make it worse. It is never that rheumatoid arthritis RA can lead to cancer. But diabetes is very important risk, very major important risk factor for cancer development, because we are on insulin, there's a lot of physiological changes that happen. There's so much of pathology in diabetes, it's like a slow poison. It is definitely a risk factor for cancer development. There's another question: natural chemo or plants, herbs in nature cure? Like I said, we have a lot of herbs that have properties like anti-cancer properties, but when the disease is at large, and when our body functions, when our digestion or other physiological functions are compromised because of cancer, we'll not be able to depend only on herbs to get and complete rid of cancer. It is very difficult. It's always better to integrate with a conventional treatment, going through suggested treatments by a conventional physician, and then along with that use these anti-cancer herbs and other supplements to complement the treatment. How holistic care can be, sorry, I missed another question. Can we cure third stage of any cancer in naturopathy? Okay. So, see, when it comes to cancer, it more than cure, it is about how many years of survival rate we get. It's not about stages. Many times it is about the biology of the disease. First stage of cancer can also be very complex if the biology is bad. And fourth stage of cancer or third stage of cancer, people can also have good quality of life based on what measures they take. But I cannot promise a cure. I can only promise best methods of, management. I can only promise our best trials to prevent, but I cannot promise I'm definitely going to prevent it. We don't know. We don't know how cancer cells react. We don't know how our body reacts, what stressors might influence. So I cannot promise cure to any stage of any cancer through any treatment. It's not just naturopathy. Even if you go and talk to allopaths, they'll not be able to promise cure for you. Would holistic care be applicable to brain tumor patients also? Yes, very much. In brain cancers, there are a lot of cognitive dysfunction that might happen depending upon the area of the brain that is affected. It is it requires a lot of support from the psychology group, especially the neuropsychologists, if they're available to help with cognitive training, neurocognitive tests and therapies. But it is definitely applicable for brain tumor patients also. It depends on what is their need at that point of time, and then we will be able to plan the sessions.
There's one more question coming. Can we give raw diet for cancer patients?
Yes. See, especially when it comes to hematological cancers, we'll have to be very, very careful when we'll advise, raw diet. Usually during chemotherapy, at least, a lot of nutritionists don't advise raw diet because we are not sure of what infections we might encounter. It's not about directly affecting the cancer, but it's about development of infections that can be a possibility when unhygienic practices are there. But with complete hygiene, raw materials should not be a problem, but you will have to be in touch with your doctor to decide what state you are in, whether you are able to, say with cancers of the stomach or the GI tract, whether there's a possibility of digesting the food that you're giving. And then, you'll have to decide on whether or not you can give raw diet, especially in hematological cancers where immunity is very badly compromised, or in bone marrow transplant and things like that, when the immunity is completely compromised. We'll have to be extra cautious in suggesting foods, especially hygiene. We'll have to take all steps to prevent infections. Can you manage cancer only by naturopathy, or a patient has to undergo chemotherapy? I would not suggest trying only naturopathy for cancer care, but it definitely depends upon the type of the cancer and what stage. It's always better to get help from the conventional treatments like chemotherapy, radiotherapy, to get rid of the active disease phase. And then with holistic care, we'll be able to manage the other aspects of treatment.
Okay. So so just one point, I think, for the audience here, which I'll just share my experience of what I've seen over the last couple of years. I've been talking to cancer patients and observing how integrative therapies are working for people. So friends, my observation I'm sharing is this. So integrative approach, in my opinion and observation, works out the best. Where either there are a lot of extreme opinions today from people saying that no, you should do only allopathic, to there's other set of people who say that no, everything else you should do only natural. Okay, these are the extremes which exist today, and I think all of you would have seen that in the content that is there on the web, because today the first thing we do is go to Google and find out everything that we can. And that is a problem, because today there's so much of unauthenticated information that is available and everywhere. So it is hard to, it is not the lack of information, but it is just the too much information which is not validated. So my view is that there is a golden mean that exists. It is not about it is not about proving the validity of any one treatment or there is any one golden cure available somewhere. If that was there, everybody would have benefited. But that is not true. What we have to do is we have to figure out a balanced mean in terms of, because there are different treatment methodologies with which each of having their own pros and cons. We have to actually integrate all of them together such that our benefit is maximized. Always remember that you are at the center and your benefit is at the center. The treatment is not at the center. The treatment is there only to help you, and it is always you who are at the center. So I would encourage all the people here on the call to adopt different methods which are, so surgery and conventional treatment are typically drug based or surgical, and they are typically tactical short-term methods to give you instant relief. So for example, if there is a tumor, you have to get rid of that tumor, right? It is a problem area. So surgery is going to help you doing that. But my logic is that there are other treatments. For example, there is naturopathy, there is diet and nutrition. We talked about anti-cancer foods, which actually naturally help your body to fight against cancer inherently. There is yoga and meditation, which help tremendously. I've seen tremendous effects. That's, as I think Priyanka and Deepa have been stressing a lot. So unless until we integrate all these methods together, our benefit are accelerated. So it is like an exponential return. You add 3 different benefits from 3 different angles, which help overall health and wellness aspects of it. So that is what I would like to stress. Use these treatment methods not one against each other, but together how they are going to help you give this benefit is what I think our approach would be. And that is what we would recommend. So it is not about one against the other, that this is better than that. Use what is best for you. Wherever you are getting the best results, you should go with it and adopt others which complement that. So yeah, that's I think my view, and we are there to support you on this.
Right. So like he said, and like I shared in the first slide, it's about our health that is more important than about a disease. We are not talking only about a disease and how to get rid of it. It's also about how you can improve your health in the process. So always integration will yield better results than going for one alone solution that you would prefer, always.
Yep. So I think there are
no more questions.
Okay, there's one more question coming on. How about fasting and cancer management?
Yeah, good question. So fasting or calorie restriction, there are a lot of studies started with animal studies, and now there are, of course, human studies with cancer and calorie restriction and fasting. But again, it depends on each individual whether the person is in a state to go through, calorie restriction or fasting. There's a very beautiful study that says calorie restriction or fasting before chemotherapy, 1 day before chemotherapy, will help manage all the side effects and will help you come out of the chemotherapy cycle in much more health. So all of these studies are there, definitely worth exploring more on these techniques of complete fasting or calorie restriction, but that has to be decided by what cancer, what stage of cancer it is, what stage the person is in also, because stage 1 also might lead to bad morbidity at times, and whether patient will be able to sustain calorie restriction at that point of time is important. But there are definitely very promising studies that are coming out with calorie restriction and fasting for cancer management, because it is directly dealing with the inflammatory markers in the body, bringing down inflammation and helping in healing and prevention on the later run. And post treatment, you can definitely do intermittent fasting to improve on all planes. Definitely it will help. During the phase of treatment, it needs to be decided by your doctor whether you can go through or not go through. Because fasting is not very easy thing to deal with many a times. That's why.
Okay. So I think there are no more questions. So friends, I think I'll just reiterate once more that we are doing this program for 10 people only. We want to have, and which is going to be personalized for you. So if you are interested, do participate and let us know if you're interested. You can reach us here. The whole idea is to really come out. The outcome of this program is basically help you come out with an integrated protocol which works for you. So that is why we are restricting it to a very small number of people, like 10 people, where during these 10 sessions we get to understand your state of wellness, what you are going through, what effects you are facing, and then with Dr. Deepa, we construct a protocol for you that you can take away and continue practicing, and then constantly measure its benefits, and then we can continue to work with you even beyond the program to help you tweak it, which such that. So that is our initiative. If you'd like to participate, do reach out.
Yes.
And if there are any questions even beyond this, please do email your questions to this number or email, and we'll definitely get back to you on that.
Right, correct.
So thank you everybody. Thank you Dr. Deepa for
Thank you,
taking this
Chinmay.
session with us. And
Yes.
thank you all.